Bittersweet by Susan Cain. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam and I want to make self-growth normal because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. I've been waiting for this book. Susan Cain has another book called Quiet about the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. And certain aspects of that book were unnecessary to me and just not very impressive as a result. But she's the type of author I would still definitely give a second chance in admiration of her storytelling ability and diligence. She has this tendency to lean toward how society has shamed or looked down upon introverts or people who seem sad or depressed from the outside, which I think is more people now than maybe ever. Okay, that's maybe a heavy way to put it, but just how we, believe it or not, I'm definitely one of them, have been trained sort of not to embrace it. It shows us how to acknowledge pain through art and expression. The idea of transforming pain into beauty, creation, transcendence, and love is the heart of this book. Why does creativity tend to be associated with longing and sorrow and transcendence? How do we cope with lost love? How do we live and work in an environment of enforced positivity when it seems like there's not really anything else to write about or draw about or anything like that? Decades later, this book is the author's answer to this question and more. The intro vaguely reminded me of Brené Brown. Her book, Atlas of the Heart, explores, I think, 87 different human emotions. Believe it or not, we actually have that many. And bittersweetness and yearning were definitely on that list. So in this video, I'm going to go over my thoughts on the book, different things I liked about it, maybe disliked about it, things that surprised me. And just so you guys know, there are affiliate links in the description. If you guys buy anything through those links, like maybe this book, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. Chapter 1 is What is Sadness Good For? Of course, from this book, it appears you can expect a similar fun-loving quality, storytelling style and based format that the author had with her previous book, which is something I don't know if I mentioned in the review, but I really did admire about Quiet. Every chapter focuses primarily on a story that exemplifies its point, kind of like what Malcolm Gladwell is known for. Oh my gosh, nowadays I'm just mentioning Malcolm Gladwell in every review. But Cain she's clearly and quite impressively put her own take on this. The chapters focus around one main story, but there are these little commercials in between going over studies that back up the validity of the stories, and to me it's really cool how she does this. Please, for the mother of goodness and earth and more, let this be better than Quiet. Please. This first chapter talked about Dr. Keltner, a psychologist who works for Pixar. Strange to think Pixar has psychologists working for them, but you know, when you get to that scale. He turns out to have had a huge, massive impact on the movie Inside Out, which it's an astonishing movie, let me tell you. And the casting, but this isn't an Inside Out movie review. Nonetheless, it's interesting how despite this focus on happiness in the work, Keltner attaches so much of his personality to an appreciation he's always had from a young age for the emotion of melancholy. Chapter 2 is Why Do We Long for Perfect and Unconditional Love? And what does this have to do with our love of sad songs, rainy days, or even the divine? And the award for longest chapter name in the history of history is for 500 points. Here is one part of this chapter that stood out. It's just so profound to me for some reason. Do you know when you see a man and you're just not sure whether you want to get in his pants or you want to cry? Not because you can't have him, maybe you can, but you see something in him beyond having. You can't screw your way into it any more than you can get at the golden eggs by slitting the goose. So you want to cry. Not like a child, but like an exile who's reminded of his homeland. It seems so much of bittersweetness comes from longing and yearning, and so much of those has to do with home and what you're familiar with that no longer is. Chapter 3 is creativity associated with sorrow, longing, and transcendence. Anybody else also kind of getting this whole Brené Brown vibe I'm talking about? Also, these parts weren't written in, but is anybody else starting to notice that all these chapter names are just questions? The way in which Cain swung from attaching bittersweetness to love to creativity gave me this distinct impression that she's really tapped into something that may have been here with us for so long that we never really seem to question it or notice it. This book is just something I love about it is that it's not just like, here guys, this is why you should be sad. We have enough of that. nowadays. But like, what if we took pain we couldn't just seem to get rid of and turned it into something else? This is why many writers, authors, musicians, artists, etc. associate their work, it's almost like falling in love all over again without falling in love all over again. Here's another part that stood out. I found that he drew, especially from the Kabbalah, the mystical version of Judaism that teaches that all of creation was a vessel once filled with holy light, but it shattered, and now the shards of divinity are scattered around us. Kind of like how Eckhart Tolle would. He uses religion and spirituality across multiple different belief systems as examples to show that there's something much deeper going on here when your beliefs are different from another person's. She discusses the origin of the word sacrifice and why its meaning is associated with ceremonies, from Passover and Easter to the pagan Ul festival and Christmas to the Chinese Moon Festival and the Japanese Buddhist Hekon celebration. Chapter 4 is how should we cope with lost love. I really like in this chapter when she discussed wounded healers. The daughter of a woman killed on the highway founds Mothers Against Drunk Driving. A 9-year-old whose father dies of cancer grows up to be a grief counselor. The survivor of a mass shooting starts a gun control organization. By the way, the story about the author's mother's experience with Alzheimer's, that was pretty touching. Chapter 5, how did a nation founded on so much heartache turn into a culture of normative smiles? The more of the chapters I got through, the more it became clear to me that perhaps this book really discusses how we make, as a mentor of mine puts it, salad out of chicken poo. Not just that, but also the role in life played by the dance between positive and negative thinking. It seems they do really have a powerful, unseen relationship with each other. Chapter 6 is how can we transcend enforced positivity in the workplace and beyond? We're encouraged by expressive writing in this chapter. For example, to see our misfortunes not as flaws that limit our success, but the seeds of our growth. You don't enjoy your misfortunes, but you learn to live with insight. If you're having a great day, just write something that elevates you. Write what's wrong on a terrible day and how it makes you feel and why. But what matters is what you write. But what matters is that you write. Chapter 7 is should we try to live forever? Something I disliked about Quiet is that I felt like it disproportionately focused more on the disempowerment of extroverts than the empowerment of introverts. Maybe not way more, but just more than it should. But to talk about a feeling, is something else entirely. And I wouldn't expect Cain to approach this with the same degree of one person's loss is another person's gain. You know that she lost her brother in April 2020 and her father later in the same year? Might I add, both from the same cause. I didn't write what that cause was, so I don't remember it, but I have a feeling that I could probably guess pretty accurately what it was. Don't mind me, I'm just laughing at my inability to remember things because it's really, really bad. Chapter 8 is should we try to get over grief and impermanence? The further I got into it though, the more I was like, is this chapter really even necessary? Really though, like what is bittersweetness have to do with grief? What specifically? Again, I mean, like it's a nice chapter. It was very focused, but it seems disproportionately more focused on grief and impermanence than on their relevance to bittersweetness. It's like the further you get into the book, you're like, okay, this isn't bad information, but like, and lastly, chapter 9, do we inherit the pain of our parents and ancestors? And if so, can we transform it generations later? This is like, okay, like this is where she was kind of overextending herself maybe a little. Like, did she really have to do this? No. Did she get away with it? I mean, to a lot of people, probably. Because this was, you have to admit, it was a very interesting one. Going over studies and stories, might I add that study and story ratio, Susan, is very on point behind the science of nature versus nurture in the eyes of pain and suffering and hurt. Quotes, there is a crack in everything. That's where the light comes in. As is true with most careers fueled by a burning question, the idea of research as me-search. Immortality is the real goal of all heroes' journeys. Star Wars and the Odyssey are just supplemented versions of the age-old desire to live forever. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who wonders why they are or are not able to find the good in what hurts. Direction 2. If you like this book, definitely give Atlas of the Heart a chance. Bittersweet by Susan Cain. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you've checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far in my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.